All right, welcome to Kids Club. I'm glad you're here this week. I want to go ahead and share our PowerPoint. So this week, we are talking about responsibility. Just a quick review about what we talked about last week. So last week, we were continuing our discussion on feelings. So we talked about how focusing on our bodies helps with our feelings because we notice them in our bodies. And sometimes by focusing on how the feelings physically affect us, it can start to help us calm down, especially when a feeling is really upset. Oops. We also worked on muscle relaxation activities. Again, noticing that we have feelings in our bodies, and sometimes by focusing on those muscles and clenching and releasing them, again, we can help take care of our bodies where we feel those feelings in our bodies. And for a similar reason, we also talked about mindful breathing exercises, focusing on our breaths in a way that helps us feel safer and more calm. Here we go. So this week, we are talking about responsibility. And that can be a big word, and sometimes it's hard to understand exactly what it means to be responsible, especially when you're a kid. If you're a kid, your responsibilities are going to be different than if you're an adult. Sometimes when we think about responsibility, we think about these things. A task you're expected to do. So if you have chores that you're supposed to do around the house, this can be part of what it is to be responsible for you. If you are supposed to dust the house on the weekends, or if you help sweep. Being responsible can also mean a way you're expected to behave, which some of you, if you're in school or have been in school before, there's a certain way you're expected to behave in school so that the class can work together and get things done. And making sure that you, for example, raise your hand in class when you're supposed to, instead of just speaking right away. Sometimes that can be considered being responsible. And standing in line, instead of all rushing the teacher at once, standing in line and understanding those ways that you can behave that help things run more smoothly and make sure that everyone has a fair chance. Being responsible can also mean accepting consequences for your actions, which can be as simple as understanding that if you do something that hurts someone, then maybe being responsible means going and saying sorry to them or trying to make it up to them if you accidentally made them feel sad or did something that made them feel bad. So accepting that maybe you made a mistake and trying to take actions to fix that mistake. That can be responsible too. What we're going to talk about today is going a little more in depth with what it means to be responsible as a kid. So what are these things that you are responsible for, but what are things that you aren't responsible for, that maybe sometimes you feel like you are? So to go into this activity, I'm going to share our whiteboard. We've used, I think, just one other time so far. Okay, so here is our whiteboard, and I have the chat window pulled up. What I'm going to do here is we're making a chart. So I am responsible for the things on this side, and I am not responsible for on this side. And we'll make a nice even line here so that we know exactly which goes where. So I'm going to give you some examples of things that maybe a kid would or would not be responsible for. And you can think about your own experiences or other kids you know if you're having trouble thinking about whether it should be something you're responsible for. And understand too that some of these might be tricky. Some of them you might think about it and not be sure. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And that's okay. If you're not sure, we can put it right on the line in the middle. So this is where you can use the chat box. If you want to answer or have an idea of where to place these as we talk about them, type that in. Okay, let's start with something really simple. And I'm just going to type these in the middle to start with. How about doing my homework? Is that something you are responsible for or not? What do you think? Yes, I'd say that that is something that we are responsible for as kids. That's part of our work at school and making sure that that gets done to help us learn and help us move through our lessons in school. Yeah, that's part of our responsibilities. Let's try something else. What about if you're in an unsafe or scary situation? Is it your responsibility to call 911? This one might be a little tricky because maybe you're thinking that if you're with adults, that it should be the adult's responsibility to make that decision and to call for help. And I think that's true. But also if there isn't an adult there or you can't get a hold of the adult that usually helps you in those situations, I'd say that is your responsibility to keep yourself safe. What about this one? Sharing my feelings. This one's a little different. It's not really a task or something physically that you do, but what do you think? Is sharing your feelings a responsibility when you're a kid? Yes. If you'll remember, in the past couple videos, we talked about how important it is to recognize your feelings and talk about them. And again, it's, you know, a responsibility to helping yourself be the best you can be and feel good and safe. Also, sometimes if we don't share our feelings, we can do or say things that we don't mean because we're struggling with trying to share how we feel. So sometimes we might do something if we're feeling upset when maybe if we told someone we were upset first, that might help too. So sharing our feelings is a big responsibility, and it's a responsibility that's hard for adults to take on too. Okay. What about are you responsible for your parents' happiness or whatever trusted adult is in your life? Is it your responsibility to make sure that they feel happy? this one is one that can be kind of tricky because I think usually we want to make the people we care about feel happy. You know, it makes us feel good if someone we care about is sad or upset and something that we do helps them feel better. But I just want you to know that that is not necessarily your responsibility. It's not something that you're supposed to do or that you should be expected to do. An adult's happiness or unhappiness is their own responsibility. They have the tools to be able to make themselves feel better if they need to. And it should not be your responsibility to make them happy or do something that they want you to do to make them happy that makes you uncomfortable or scared. Being respectful of other people. Yeah. So it's not our responsibility to make other people happy. But being a responsible person does mean that you are respectful of other people. And that just means that you treat other people kindly, and no matter who they are, you respect their space, their feelings, again, without making it something that, you know, you're not responsible for making them happy. But you respect other people's space, you listen to them when they're talking. It's that old thing that you may have heard before, treat others the way you would like to be treated. Just that kind of basic human treatment is what we mean when we talk about being respectful. How about this one? Keeping my family together. This is another one that can be tricky because it can be really difficult when some people in your family are fighting, or it seems like a lot of people in your family are upset. Maybe they're upset with each other and you want the fighting to stop, or you want people to be happy. You want your family to be happy. But this is something that's not your responsibility. Especially if it's an argument between adults in your family. Like we talked about before, that's the adult's responsibility. That's their job to share their feelings and come to a solution if there's a problem. And you shouldn't take it upon yourself to try to fix whatever adult problems are happening in your family. It's not something that you should be expected to do, and usually something that you can't do anyway. It's something that the adults have to figure out. And I know it can be really hard, especially if whatever is happening is upsetting and you want it to stop or change. So you may feel like doing something will help or make things better, which is totally understandable. But that's really the adult's responsibility to figure it out and to help you feel okay with whatever is happening. What about let's talk about this one. Comforting my sibling, that's brother or sister, when they are sad or upset. What do you think? this is one that's kind of in the middle for some people. Again, it's something where we want the people we care about to be happy, or if there's something that we can do to help them feel happy, we want to do that. So if you have a sibling that you care about and want to comfort if they're having a hard day, it can feel like something that you have to do, right? Yeah, this one can be tricky, and I understand why it's on the middle for a lot of people. And I think something to think about with a situation like this is, can you do this and still feel safe? So if you are in a place where your feelings are calm and not out of control, and you think that you could offer some help to your sibling if they're sad or upset, if you have the energy to do that without making yourself feel worse, then that's something that you can do. Or, like we talked about with feelings last time, sometimes helping people can help you feel better. If that's something that works for you, then maybe comforting your sibling when they're sad can help you if you're feeling sad. So maybe that's something that will be helpful for you too. But ultimately, you are most responsible for yourself and your actions and keeping yourself safe. So if doing this will make you unsafe, or if you are just not able to do this, then don't think of it as your responsibility. It's nice to be able to be there for people that we care about, but you need to be responsible for yourself first. So I think it's okay if we leave that on the middle, because that one can be a little tricky and something that you can think about. Let's try one more. What about helping someone who's being bullied? What do you think? This one's kind of tricky too. I'm giving you a couple hard ones in a row. Yeah, because again, this is one where you may really want to help someone who is in a hard place. But again, we want to make sure that you can do this while still keeping yourself safe. And there could be plenty of ways to do this that are options depending on how safe you feel. So maybe this doesn't have to mean running in between the bully and the person getting bullied and putting yourself physically in the way. Maybe it just means telling an adult about what's happening. You know, this doesn't mean that you have to get right in between them. You can help someone by telling someone else what's happening. And that's a way that maybe you can still stay safe while feeling that you are helping this person who is in trouble. And as far as this being something that we might be responsible or not responsible for, what we talked about before with responsibility were things like chores, behaviors, saying sorry if you make a mistake. And there's also responsibilities that go beyond that. They're more social responsibilities, or ways that we can make a difference in our community. And I think this is one of those kinds of responsibilities where it's not necessarily directly connected to your life, but it might make your community better if you can tell an adult that someone is being hurt or picked on. Maybe that will help make the community safer for other people too. Maybe even yourself if something like this happens to you later. So it's not a personal responsibility, but it is one of those larger community responsibilities that helps keep us all safe. And just to make this point one last time, the biggest thing you're responsible for is keeping yourself safe. Stop the whiteboard. And this is just the first part of our responsibility videos. We will have another video next week that talks a little more about responsibilities and what that means. But this week, I wanted to talk about, yes, chores and homework. Those are things that you are responsible for. But you're also responsible for your feelings, taking care of yourself, and making sure that you're safe. That is one of your biggest responsibilities as a kid. And I wanted to talk to my friend, Mr. Rogers here, because he has always such good things to say about taking care of yourself and living well. So I just wanted to share something that he shared with us before.
Of King Friday's saying we weren't to be afraid of anything. The king says, fear nothing at all. Well, even though the king says he doesn't want anyone to be afraid, it's important for us to know that it's all right to talk about being afraid. It's all right, and it even helps us to grow inside. It certainly does. In fact, that's one way of taking good care of yourself so you can grow, talking about your feelings. I'm taking care of you, taking good care of you. For once, I was very little, too. Now, I take care of you. Growing is learning to take better and better care of yourself and everyone and everything around you.
Yeah, so just like what Mr. Rogers said, by taking care of yourself, that's a big step to being able to take care of other people. So when we talked about those tricky situations where you might want to make someone else feel happy or comfort them when they're upset, it's hard to do that if you haven't taken care of yourself first and really shared your feelings, figured out how you're feeling, and helped yourself feel better if it's something that was upsetting or confusing.
And what did you think of King Friday?
Not again, Mr. Rogers. Okay. So, at this time, I just wanted to ask if anyone had any questions about what we've talked about today. Here are some things that you can think and talk about in the next week after you've watched this video. Talk to your trusted adult at home about what your responsibilities are. So this can be anything from the chores that you're supposed to do at home, and also those other responsibilities like sharing your feelings. So maybe you're a person who, if you're upset, you tend to kind of clam up and not want to talk about it, and you get annoyed and you maybe do things that you want to do when you're not upset. Maybe one of your responsibilities can be talking about those feelings and sharing those feelings first instead of acting on them first. So a responsibility could be sharing your feelings when you're upset. Also think about what is going to help you complete those responsibilities, because people work in all different kinds of ways. What helps me keep on track of my responsibilities may not help you. Maybe you are someone who likes to have things written down. So something that could help you is maybe if you write a note, a sticky note, and stick them on things where you go to do your responsibilities. So if one of your responsibilities is doing the dishes, maybe there can be a sticky note above the sink that reminds you that you need to do your dishes after you do breakfast. Or maybe you're someone who really benefits from having a gentle reminder of something that you're supposed to be doing. So for you, maybe helping you complete your responsibilities is having your trusted adult give you a reminder before those things are supposed to be done. Try to think about what might help you take care of those responsibilities. Next week, we are going to continue this conversation by sharing a couple stories about responsibility and talking about who is responsible in each situation. As always, if you have a question or want to share something with Kids Club, with the permission of your trusted adult, you can email our email here and share that. And these videos are recorded and captioned, and usually within a couple days, I get them posted on our YouTube channel here. So you can always watch this video again if you would like to. All of the videos for Kids Club are in their own playlist, so you can watch one after the other if you want to. And for any adults watching, here is just some information about New Beginnings. We have a 24-hour helpline. You're welcome to call anytime. And these are some of the services that the advocates on the helpline can offer. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you learned a little something about responsibility. We are always learning, me too. And I hope to see you next week. Thank you. Bye.